My name is Daniel Parker, and 8 months ago, I thought I had found the perfect place to live, Oakwood Estates. Picture-perfect lawns, quiet streets, tasteful homes. It was everything I wanted in the neighborhood, but what I didn't know was that Oakwood Estates came with a hidden curse. Not buried under the ground, not written in the fine print of the mortgage papers. No, this curse came in human form. Her name was Linda Matthews, president of the Oakwood Estates Homeowners Association. And trust me, Linda wasn't just an HOA president. She was a one-woman army with a clipboard, a power complex, and a blazer so stiff it probably had its own zip code. I still remember our very first encounter. I had just parked the moving truck in front of my new house, sweating, tired, and ready to start my new life. That's when she appeared, marching across the street like a general heading into battle. Khaki capri, blue blazer, and the pièce de résistance, a giant gold pin that read HOA President. "Hello there," she chirped, already scribbling something on her clipboard. "I'm Linda Matthews, president of the Oakwood Estates Homeowners Association. I see you're moving in today, which is fine, but your truck is partially blocking the sidewalk by exactly 7 inches. That violates Section Was I supposed to hand out applications to the robins? But the one that really broke me was the wreath. A simple, innocent wreath on my front door. According to Linda, it had excessive amounts of the color red. During a non-holiday month, apparently my wreath was a threat to suburban stability. Each letter was more ridiculous than the last. And with every notice, Linda wasn't just enforcing rules. She was inventing them, twisting them, expanding them, like some kind of suburban dictator with a taste for power and paper. I complied with every demand, kept my mouth shut, and told myself, "Don't make waves, Daniel. Don't give her a reason to escalate." But deep down I knew Linda wasn't going to stop. Not until she controlled every square inch of Oakwood Estates, including the inside of my house. And that's when things really got out of hand. Now I could live with the grass violations. I could tolerate the bird feeder drama. I could even swallow the wreath incident. But then, Linda crossed the line. She went after something far more sacred: my packages. Like most people who work from home, I order a lot online. Computer parts, books, office supplies, the occasional guilty pleasure from late-night shopping. Nothing out of the ordinary. At first, it was just a missing box here and there. I assumed porch pirates, maybe a delivery mistake. But when it kept happening, I knew something was off. So I installed a doorbell camera. And what I caught on video nearly made my blood boil. There she was, Linda Matthews, HOA president, queen of khaki capris, marching right up to my porch after deliveries. Not only inspecting my packages like some suburban customs officer, but actually taking them. Sometimes she'd pick up a box, tilt it, shake it, and if it looked interesting enough, straight into her blazer or right back to her house across the street. One afternoon, she got especially bold. She opened a package on my porch, peeked inside, slipped the contents into her pocket, and tossed the empty box into my recycling bin like it never existed. The audacity, the sheer unfiltered nerve. Linda wasn't just enforcing aesthetic standards. She was straight up stealing. That's when I realized this wasn't about lawns or hoses or wreaths anymore. Linda had declared herself judge, jury, and package executioner, and I wasn't the only one. The neighborhood had been living in fear of her rules, but now she was literally reaching onto our porches, This wasn't just HOA harassment anymore. This was theft. And it was about to get personal. I'm not the type to start drama. I work from home, keep to myself, and honestly, the last thing I ever wanted was a feud with the HOA president. But when I saw Linda stealing my deliveries on camera, I knew I had to say something. The very next morning, I walked across the street, knocked on her perfectly polished front door, and waited. Linda appeared, clipboard in hand. That ever-present smile plastered across her face, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Good morning, Daniel," she chirped, like she hadn't been caught red-handed. I kept my voice calm. "Linda, I noticed on my security camera that you've been taking packages from my porch. Is there something I should know about?" For the first time, her smile twitched, just for a second. Then she straightened up and said with absolute confidence, "Oh, Daniel, I'm just doing my job as HOA president. Section 23(9) clearly states that all deliveries must comply with our neighborhood's aesthetic standards." I blinked. "Guidelines? For packages?" "Yes," she nodded as if this was perfectly normal. "We have restrictions on box sizes, delivery frequencies, and visible logos that might disrupt the visual harmony of our community. I've only been temporarily confiscating the non-compliant ones." "Temporarily," I repeated, "because some of them never came back." Her smile tightened like a noose. "Well, I've been very busy with HOA matters. Once you fill out a package exemption form, I'll be happy to return them." "Package exemption form?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "I'm still drafting it," she admitted, without the slightest hint of irony. "But rules are rules, Daniel." Even when they're still being formalized, that was it. That was the moment I realized I wasn't dealing with an overzealous neighbor. I was dealing with a dictator in a blue blazer. Linda had declared war, and I wasn't about to lose. After my little chat with Linda, I did exactly what the police officer suggested. I started asking around, quietly, casually, like some undercover agent in the suburbs, and what I found shocked me. Turns out I wasn't Linda's only victim. Far from it. In fact, the entire neighborhood was living under her iron-fisted rule. The elderly couple on the corner. They'd been fined because their grandchildren visited more than 3 times in a single month. Apparently, family love wasn't HOA approved. The single mom down the street, she got violation letters for leaving for work too early in the morning. Yes, you heard that right. Her crime was departing her driveway at a non-designated hour. One neighbor admitted she paid over $200 in fines for having the wrong shade of mulch in her flower beds. Another confessed that Linda once peeked through their blinds to check the color of their curtains. It was insane. People weren't just annoyed by Linda anymore. They were scared of her. Every story painted the same picture. Linda wasn't protecting the neighborhood. She was exploiting it, turning the HOA into her personal empire, where fines were weapons and fear kept everyone in line. And now, with her new obsession over packages, she'd crossed into something even darker. She wasn't just inventing rules anymore. She was stealing. From me, from them, from anyone unlucky enough to live within walking distance of her clipboard. That's when it hit me. Linda Matthews wasn't just the HOA president. She was Oakwood Estates' very own suburban tyrant. And if no one stood up to her, she'd keep ruling through intimidation forever. Well, someone had to fight back, and that someone was going to be me. The day of the monthly HOA meeting arrived, and I knew this was it. No more whispers, no more private confrontations. Tonight, Linda Matthews was going to be exposed. In front of everyone, the community center was packed. Rows of folding chairs, neighbors sitting stiff, most of them clutching violation notices like parking tickets. And there she was, Linda, sitting at the front table, clipboard in hand, pearls around her neck, smiling like a queen addressing her loyal subjects. She tapped her pen against the microphone. "Welcome, everyone. Let's begin with the agenda. Item 1, review of fence color compliance. Item 2, approval of new driveway washing schedules." I let her drone on, watching the glazed-over faces of my neighbors. They weren't like wildfire, Linda shot up from her chair. That's taken out of context, she stammered. I was enforcing HOA guidelines, but the crowd wasn't buying it. The elderly couple whispered, she did that to us too. The single mom raised her hand and said, she's been harassing me for months. One by one, neighbors began speaking out. Violation stories, unfair fines, rules that never existed until Linda invented them. The room transformed from silent compliance to open rebellion. Linda slammed her clipboard down. This meeting is out of order, she barked. But the people had finally found their voice. And this time she couldn't silence them with a fine. The HOA meeting had become a mutiny, and I knew this was only the beginning of the end for Linda Matthews. You'd think after being humiliated in front of the entire neighborhood, Linda Matthews would finally back off, apologize, maybe even resign as HOA president. But no, that would be too easy. Instead, Linda did the unthinkable. She doubled down. The very next morning, violation letters appeared on nearly every doorstep. Mine said my porch light was too bright. My neighbor's notice claimed her mailbox was 2 inches higher than the community standard. Another got fined for having wind chimes. Wind chimes! It was pure retaliation. Her message was crystal clear. If you speak against Linda, stop. She wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't ashamed. If anything, she was more dangerous than ever, and I knew. I couldn't take her down alone, so I started calling in reinforcements. arms flailing, screeching about vandalism and sabotage, while every single camera on the block caught the meltdown in glorious high definition. And here's the thing, nobody felt sorry for her. Not one person, because in that moment, Linda Matthews wasn't the queen of Oakwood Estates anymore. She was the punchline and the skunk package plan. It was just the beginning of her downfall. The skunk package plan worked better than we could have ever imagined. But what happened afterward? That was pure comedy gold. The second Linda opened that box, her entire world turned upside down. She staggered into the street, waving her arms, coughing, gagging, and shrieking like she'd been personally attacked by Mother Nature herself. Neighbors peeked out their windows, phones in hand, recording every second. Her perfectly pressed blazer, ruined. Her pearls, stained. Her reputation? Let's just say it was skunked beyond repair. But the smell? Oh, the smell. It didn't just stick to her clothes. It followed her, everywhere. At the HOA office, staff had to open every window just to breathe. At the grocery store, customers abandoned entire carts the moment she walked down an aisle. And at home, her poor husband had to sleep in the guest room because their entire bedroom reeked like a wildlife sanctuary on fire. The best part? She tried to play it off. At the next HOA bulletin, Linda stood at the podium, still faintly smelling like a tire fire mixed with rotten eggs, and declared, "This community must not be distracted by childish pranks." But no one was listening. Half the neighbors were laughing too hard, the other half pinching their noses. The once untouchable HOA president, the tyrant of Oakwood Estates, was now the community skunk lady. And the footage? It spread online faster than wildfire. By the end of the week, Linda the package skunk was the most shared video in the county. Her power wasn't just slipping away, it was rotting right out from under her. The skunk disaster was the breaking point. Up until then, most people in Oakwood Estates were too scared to challenge Linda directly. They whispered, they complained, but they always paid the fines. Not anymore. Now Linda wasn't the enforcer. She was the joke. And once the fear was gone, the anger came out. Neighbors who'd stayed silent for years suddenly found their voices. The elderly couple on the corner marched right up to Linda's door and demanded every dollar of their bogus fines back. The single mom down the street started circulating a petition to have Linda removed from the HOA board entirely. Even the most timid residents, the ones who used to peek through their blinds instead of speaking up, were standing tall, telling their stories, sharing evidence, and laughing at the very woman who used to terrify them. And the best part? They weren't afraid of her retaliation anymore. Not after the skunk spray, not after the viral video. Her power was gone. Her clipboard was just a piece of plastic now. At the next HOA gathering, when Linda tried to open the meeting, half the neighborhood turned their backs. Some walked out, others stayed, but they refused to follow her orders. It wasn't just defiance, it was a rebellion. For the first time in years, the neighborhood wasn't under Linda's thumb. It was united against her, and Linda Matthews? She wasn't the queen of Oakwood Estates anymore. She was the villain, and everyone knew it. The tide had turned. And soon, so would her fate. Linda Matthews thought she was untouchable. For years, she ruled Oakwood Estates with an iron clipboard, inventing rules, handing out fines, and treating her neighbors like subjects in her little kingdom. But power built on fear doesn't last. And Linda was about to learn that the hard way. When the police returned after the skunk incident, they didn't just come with questions. They came with evidence, videos of her stealing packages, testimonies from neighbors, even piles of unopened boxes discovered inside her home. What Linda called community inspections, the law called mail theft. And that wasn't a minor violation. It was a federal crime. The sight was almost poetic. The same officer she once tried to impress with her authority now stood on her doorstep, clipboard in hand, reading her rights. The snap of the handcuffs was like a gavel slamming shut. Across the street, her neighbors gathered. Not in fear, but in relief. For the first time in years, they could breathe. They could decorate their porches, water their lawns however they liked, and receive packages without them mysteriously vanishing. The HOA board moved quickly. Linda was removed as president that very week. Her so-called revised bylaws were thrown out, her fines canceled, her grip on Oakwood shattered, and the neighborhood, it celebrated. Some called it Liberation Day, others just called it justice. As for me, I watched from my porch, coffee in hand, and smiled. Linda wanted control of everything, but in the end, the only thing she controlled was her own downfall. Justice didn't come quickly. It didn't come easily. But when it finally arrived, it was absolute. Linda Matthews, once the self-proclaimed ruler of Oakwood Estates, now stood as a cautionary tale. Her obsession with power, her made-up rules, and her constant need to control others had destroyed everything she thought she'd built. The court didn't see a neighborhood leader. It saw a thief, a manipulator, a woman who abused her position for personal gain. The charges stuck. Mail theft, harassment, abuse of authority. Linda was fined heavily, ordered to repay every neighbor she'd wronged, and stripped of any right to serve in an HOA again. For Oakwood Estates, it was the end of an era. The fear was gone. The laughter had returned. The community was free. The best part, the neighbors didn't just rebuild their trust in each other, they rebuilt their neighborhood itself. Barbecues replaced boardroom lectures, friendship replaced fines, and every package, no matter how big or small, arrived safely at its rightful doorstep. As for me, I never set out to be the neighborhood vigilante. I just wanted peace. But when pushed too far, I learned something important. Sometimes standing up to one bully can set an entire community free. And Linda Matthews, she got exactly what she deserved. That wasn't revenge. That was justice. Final justice.